I belong to you.
I belong to you.
Do just what you want. You're the one I trust.
Puts it into an area. Keo, Zamora!
And I'll always be around when I need some love and baby. No one else.
Let you down. All my melodies,
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Andy Campbell Championship show. Show is available live on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Ace Podcast Nation, your home to many other great shows and series featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. So give us a follow on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll get all the latest news on upcoming shows and guests. You can also follow Just the Football Show at AC Footy Show on all the various social media platforms, and if you just want the audio versions of the various shows, you can get them at your favourite podcast and radio platform. Just as we sort of let the platforms fill up, as it were, and the live chat fill up a bit. A big thank you to Black Diamond Sports as ever for their support. They're a global sports agency which represents sports stars from all around the world. You can visit their social media pages for more information, or indeed check out their website, which is beautiful, as I say regularly. It is so nice. And the links to all of that is in the description below, as well as the closing credits at the end of the show. As ever, our sponsor for today's show is Bespoke Financial and Dan Ralston. Big thank you to them. Just before we do go to the little ad for them and have a word from them, Dan Ralston of Bespoke Financial is giving away a free will worth £140 with any new policy that's taken out. So check him out and give them a call. You can get their contact details off myself or Andy, and I think it's at the end of in the closing description as well. Don't miss out, because it's an amazing offer. In this the COVID era, as it were. Insurance policies are more important than ever, and he's looked after Andy for various policies over the years, including the critical illness and the injury cover. They really are top of their field, and they provide award-winning service. We wouldn't link up with anyone who we wouldn't use ourselves, and we're very proud to partner up with them. So, Anne, do you want to play the ad now, or play it a little bit later? What do you reckon?
No, let's get straight into some football side. I want to talk about the video at the start. Some iconic moments, some iconic goals. And do you know what? I watch it every time, and sometimes you don't appreciate how good and how relevant football is. I think until you see the supporters not being here and it gets to you a little bit. That Charlie Adams free kick against Cardiff, iconic moment. The goals in the playoff finals, iconic moments, just some unbelievable. Peter Whittingham's goal, listen.
That penalty in there when they missed the penalty and then go up the other end and score, yeah.
Troy Deeney's head,
unbelievable.
The winning goal in playoffs. These iconic moments have all happened in one division, the championship has been the gift which keeps on giving, We're not obviously big fans of the Premier League for various reasons, but the Championship keeps it so relevant, and it's a reason why the majority of football fans want the teams to stay in this league, because it's real, and it's a famous
proper
league.
Football, mate.
And if it wasn't for the finances of the Premier League, I think people would prefer to stay in it.
Yeah, that's what it is, mate. It's Championship is everything which people like about football at the end of the day. By the way, this is ex-Middlesbrough and Cardiff City striker. David Jones' favourite son, Mr. Andy Campbell. Welcome. And it's a Friday free-for-all tonight because there was no championship. So we're gonna shoot about a bit. We're going to answer as many questions as the people give us. We're going to talk a bit of Nations League. We'll preview the championship games. Have a few rants though. Oh, there's a couple of them coming. We'll talk a bit of everything, really.
I'm looking forward to it. Different side, innit? It's different, and I like these because it's. Listen, this show would be nothing without the people who watch it, and the interaction we have with people is amazing. We had an absolutely phenomenal show on Monday with Leo. We just announced a show on Monday with Darren Williams, which will be absolutely superb. He's got a great story to tell. He had an amazing career both internationally and domestically, and really excited. You know what I mean? There's good things around the corner with some amazing guests coming on as well. So all I can say is watch this space because it's bigger and better, and it's just growing all the time. I can't thank people enough, really.
Spot on, mate. And it's going to be really interesting, actually, with Darren, because Sunday we've got the Mental Health in Sport show, and Darren's the guest on that. So he talks a bit about some of the issues that he's had. We talk a lot about academy football, because that's something that he's involved in, and the help or lack of help that some young footballers are getting these days. And it's a really fascinating show, so it's going to be interesting to put that out Sunday. And then obviously he's going to be on the live show Monday. We're going to talk a lot about his career and about football generally. But then also maybe people will ask questions about the show from the night before. So it's going to be like on and off the field within 24 hours. So it'd be nice.
I'd like people to link the two. Link the football to the mental health, or the mental health to the football, because there is mental health within the football, and it's because of... I won't blame mental health on football, but it plays a major part, and you know what I mean. Daz hasn't known any different. He's played football since he was, certainly since he left school, and till the day he retired. You know, so it's played a huge part in his life, and so has mental health. So you know what I mean. I'll be interested to listen to some of the reactions, some of the answers. Yeah,
it'd be fascinating, mate. Like, well, straight away. Like I was just saying to you off air, when we had David Cottrell on the Monday show, on the Andy Campbell Football Show, 7:30 Mondays. He said when he had his big move to, I think it was Birmingham, he got a big move on deadline day. He had a wife and a young baby. He was in a new city, and basically the agent and the club kind of just dumped him in this new city in like a hotel. He had no house, nowhere to live, didn't know anyone, nothing. He was just basically abandoned. And at the time he was, at the very most, early 20s. And I just think football as a whole has got to do a better job of looking after all footballers, but young footballers particularly. Like, these guys are the future of the football, which, you know, if you haven't got players, you haven't got a game to watch. Just like it's not the same without the fans. So if you don't look after these young players, particularly in a situation like we've got at the moment, where they're literally stuck at home constantly, gun training, coming home constantly, they're going to pick up mental health problems. They're going to pick up, dare I say it, gambling addictions, because that's the easiest thing for them to do at home. They get paid a lot of money. So let's do what we can to look after them and help them, just like we would any other human being. Do you know what I mean?
So the problem for me is I would love to listen to the organisations, to the EFL, the PFA, the FA, the Premier League, for them to come out and tell me whose responsibility it is to look after these players. They're on about that when the players aren't players anymore, the aftercare, for example, that it's someone else's responsibility. Right, okay. But when they are a professional footballer, whose job is it then? They say it's the club's responsibility. Someone's got to take responsibility, because like you just said, they're on about a professional footballer here who's just been plonked in a city, doesn't know anybody, doesn't know his way around, he might not be able to drive, so that's caused a problem straight away. If he can drive, he doesn't know where he's going, and we're talking about probably 10 years ago here, you know what I mean? So yes, stat navs and all that were there, but they're not as relevant as they are now. They're not as good and strong as they are now, so it's getting from A to B is a struggle, and being late, and it can cause its own problems, you know, and it can cause depression, it can cause loneliness. Being in a hotel, I've been there myself on the first time for Cardiff. It's people think it's a luxury lifestyle, you know what I mean? I went from leaving for training ground at 9 o'clock in the morning, living in a hotel, to going to training, staying there as long as I could, because I knew I was going back to my four walls. Yes, I could go downstairs and sit in the lobby, but I used to sit in the restaurant and sit on my own. I had dinner on my own. And when you look around and you see families having dinner in 4s, 3s, 5s, and you're sat on your own, it's a little bit embarrassing, you know? So sometimes you just sit in your room, have your dinner, and you don't leave them four walls, and it can be quite a lonely place.
Yeah, and the other side of it, particularly with the young players, is they're going from living at home, getting paid a good amount of money, to suddenly getting a lot of money, being in a new place, new country, new city. They've never paid bills before. They've never bought a house before. They've never even done any of that stuff. They don't know how to do it. If they haven't got a family to help them out with that basic stuff, and their agents are not interested in helping them out with that sort of stuff because they've got them the big move, that's their job, it can be very, very difficult and very daunting for a kid of 19 who's got a boatload of money but doesn't know how to do basic stuff. There's all sorts of angles to it. We've just had a cracking question to start us off, mate, from Leslie Coates.
Yeah,
he says, what do you think of Jeff Hurst's comments not to head a ball up to age 11 as the brain's not fully developed?
Listen, I've listened to a whole host of ex-footballers, older, some who's only just retired, about ages of when they should be doing it and not heading the ball in training. And just doing it in the game situation, not doing it as kids. They've got to make this decision, and for me, you can't not do it in training side. It's one of those things where I hear managers and players all the time. You train as you play. You know what I mean? So if you had the ball in, I look at Harry Maguire, for example. I watched the England game over the week, and Harry Maguire had the ball more than anybody. His desire to win the header was phenomenal. If he can't practice that in training, he's not going to do the same thing in the game. He's going to make mistakes. His timing's going to be off. His direction's going to be off. His accuracy's going to be off. So you've got to give these players an opportunity to practice the way that they play. I'm not on about throwing 1,000 balls to him in training and doing it repetitively, but if he's playing five-a-side or he's in a game situation and the ball goes out to win, he's got to win it, you know. And I can only speak from my own personal experiences side. That I used to hate heading the ball. I used to be scared of it. I used to hate it. If I headed the ball in the wrong place, I'd get a headache. So, you know what I mean? Everyone, coaches, head it on your forehead, players to head it. But as a centre forward, it's very rare that you get the ball on the forehead, because if you're flicking the ball on, it's every part of your head. It's on the top of your head, which really hurts. And so it's a difficult thing to talk about, and a difficult thing for me to put your finger on. I think they've got to do something, you know what I mean? Because it's not a nice thing for families to have to go through in later life, and kids to grow up without parents and to lose loved ones because of it. And if it's football's played an impact, then I'm all for it. But I think it's a grey area, as in to ban it from training as well.
So I think there's a couple of angles to it, really, in terms of, one, we know very little about concussions and dementia and things like this, and unfortunately the best way to learn about these sorts of things is after death, where they can examine the brain and see the damage which has occurred, etc., etc. So that's obviously a big problem in terms of getting to the bottom of it and investigations and things like that. In terms of the up to 11, maybe not heading the ball, I can see the logic to it. I think ultimately it's not realistic. And shall I tell you why it's not realistic? And I would use a real world example. So my youngest boy, he is under 13s, under 12s. So he's in year 7. His grassroots team started playing football. They had their first match, I think, last week or the week before. So last Saturday was their second match back under the COVID restrictions, all very strict. The Welsh FA have been really slow because they wanted to get it right. So my boys, none of my kids are playing at the moment because of my health, so they haven't gone back. Second game back, the team they played brought too many players because they didn't want to they didn't want to pick a squad under the numbers that they're supposed to have. And they did, what else did they do? They did something else as well. Basically broke the rules straight away because that's what they wanted to do. Because you get these coaches who fancy themselves as a bit, they're the next Alex Ferguson or Jose Mourinho while they're, managing their grassroots team. So to me, if they're going to break the rules about COVID restrictions on players in terms of just bringing the right amount of players and sticking to hand sanitizer and washing the balls and stuff like this, if you tell them that you don't want players up to a certain age not heading the ball at grassroots level, I'm talking, not like academy level or football, just at grassroots level, I just don't think they'll do it. They won't do it because they think they know best.
I also think, Si, as well, it's setting the precedent as well, isn't it? Because when you get to 11-year-old, then when you turn to under 11s, under 12s, whatever that age group is that you're allowed to do it, do you then start throwing balls at people to head the ball? So you're overdoing it, you're over-practicing because kids don't know how to do it. They've never done it before. You know, so then you're gonna have more problems, for example. So there's got to be that fine margin, you know what I mean, of maybe not do it in training, but then if it happens in a game, it happens in a game. Because if let's say you're a 10-year-old boy and you want to be the next Ryan Giggs, and you run down the line and cross the ball in, but no one's allowed to hit the ball in the net, then
it's
what you're going to work on. You know, listen, I wish all these kind of illnesses would go away and there was a way of curing everything, but I just think asking people, it's like tackling in rugby, you know what I mean, that you get to a level where you've got to tackle, you know what I mean, but even kids at the younger age still know how to tackle because they've been shown how to do it. Yes, they play tag rugby, but they still know how to tackle because they've done it, and it's just Rob makes a good comment, you know what I mean, listen, in schools,
a couple of comments ago, you got Rob there.
Kids want to do headers, kids want to head the ball, kids love heading the ball. My little girl, she loves heading the ball. You know what I mean? It's
mine does
when
too.
When we play football, it's just one of those things. And where do we go if somebody gets kicked in the face with the ball as well? It's a difficult one. You know, it is
a difficult one. Leslie makes a good point. Obviously, in Jeff Hurst's day, there's a massive difference in the weight of the balls. And I dare say, even from your day, mate, in your peak, when you were in the peak of your career, I would thought if you held the two balls up from now and then, there's probably a big difference in weight even from that.
The old mitre balls were a lot heavier than the Nike ones now, or the top drawer ones. You know, the mitre multiplex, what they use in the Premier League, and
they were flyaway ones, aren't they?
Yeah, they were really heavier and the ones now are, you know, I mean, they're hardly made of anything. It's like boots. Boots back in the day when I started were heavier than they are now. You know what I mean? There's ways and means of making things a little bit better, a little bit easier, and I just think. But listen, the bigger picture for me is I hope they can find a way of treating these things. So I don't know, is that regular tests? Is that brain scans for players as well as heart scans?
That's a good start, isn't it? Like Reece makes a similar point to what Leslie said about the weight of the balls, but also when it rained, those leather balls, which Jeff Hurst would have played with, you know, they doubled in weight. Do you know what I mean? So it's
I didn't head the balls I had, so I wouldn't have been anywhere near them. Scared to death.
Where's it gone? Sorry. Geraint said, can we make reference to Ian Holloway made an impassioned speech today about the lack of support for smaller clubs and Project Big Picture.
I watched it. I seen it.
There you go. You'll know better than me because I've only seen clips of it.
It was live on Sky Sports News, and he wore his nice new hat with his Grimsby Town training kit, and he spoke very passionate as Ian does. He hit the nail right in the head. He said the Project Big Picture, absolute joke. I think he called it Project Rubbish Picture. I think he called it or something. But listen, he's bang on. He knows that his football club, for example, will not be able to continue if they don't get some help from somewhere and fast. And if it's not his club, it's going to be someone else's club. He said there's going to be 10 or 15 clubs that will fold if they don't get any help soon. There's going to be no supporters going through at least till January. At the earliest, if not till the end of the season. Clubs will not be able to continue. Players are still getting paid. Bills are still having to get paid. People are still working at clubs. You know what I mean? That's in reception areas. That's in certain areas. As I say, club shops when they're allowed, when lockdown's not on, probably in 2 weeks' time. Teams have to get revenue somehow, and at the minute they're just not getting it from anywhere.
Well, you know what else as well, mate, is, and I think what people perhaps got lost on the Wrexham thing, because it's Ryan Reynolds and the other guy, I forget his name now, but because it's those names, people think, oh wow, you know, investment. But actually, their investment has probably saved Wrexham from having any serious problems over the next 12 months because of COVID. Yeah. Not all clubs are that lucky. No. And that's where you've got to be looking to the FA and the Premier League and people to make sure that these football clubs survive, because it's all very well the Premier League thriving, but if there's no leagues below it, people will soon get bored of the Premier League, as we've seen.
Bury, Macclesfield Town, you know what I mean? They're two teams in the Greater Manchester area already that we've lost. You know what I mean? They're having to build
If
himself.
I gotta say,
Derby
mate, if I was a
before.
United fan or a Man City fan, I'd be absolutely disgusted that Bury went bust. I'd be absolutely disgusted, mate. I really would.
I'd love to know, like, I'd love to know them dig the bones out of how Gary never really thought about it, because he never really came out publicly. You know, the amount of effort in his time that his dad put in as chairman. You know what I mean? His mum put in, as the family put in, sister. You know what I mean? Helping out, being volunteers. All of that for what? You know what I mean? To the health of his dad, who ended up passing away. You know, it's heartbreaking. You know what I mean? They lost a football club, and people have lost their dad. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that was a reason, but it's affected his health. All the negativity and all the stress, and it's such a shame. You know, I mean, football clubs should stick together, and at the minute it's not. It's one league who looks after itself, and it's not getting filtered down, unfortunately, yet.
No, and I think, like, if you're just using Cardiff and Swansea as an example, I know they've helped out local clubs before. Between them, they've both helped out Merthyr at certain points over time. You've got to try and help out your local area, your local teams. I like to think that a lot of when Cardiff don't play, I know a group of Cardiff fans go and watch, like Cardiff Met or the local Welsh League teams. And ultimately, if I was a United or a City fan, I would be very upset that Bury, such a historic club, went bust on my watch. But you know, I'm sure those clubs would have. They'd say, "Oh, COVID's affected us all." But look, come on, let's be honest. Man City and Man United, out of every club in the world, are the two least likely to have any real issues coming out of COVID. Reece David Evans says, big shout out to previous guest Andy Legg, who got the manager's job at Legg for the second time.
Yeah,
Great
pleased
news.
that he's got back in. You know, if I know he spoke about wanting to get back into management when the time was right. Obviously, it's right. Good luck to him. It's going to be a tough job because there's some big sides now in the Welsh leagues, especially the Premier League. You know what I mean? TNS, Connors Key.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's some big sides who are paying quite a lot of money with a good history in the past 10-15 years. So it's going to be a tough job, but I'm sure Leggy's up to it. I'm sure with his contacts and his commitment, his desire and his quality, he'll be a success, and I hope he is.
Yeah, ultimately, I like seeing people staying in the game or getting back in the game, and I really, really believe that Andy Legg has got a lot to offer football. He's got a great mind. He's a great man. Was a great player, and I think a very underrated player as well. We touched up on it when he was on the show, but like people forget, like he played, you know, Premier League football. He was a very, very good footballer. He was much more than a workhorse or a long ball, a long throw-in. Player, which I think sometimes people obviously fondly remember those long throws. But he was much better than that. He was a phenomenal player.
I said I'm underside about people being disrespectful to Leo. You know, and I think that can go on about other people. You know, that people just saw Leggy as a long throw specialist. You know what I mean? He was the fittest player I came across in my football career. You know what I mean? He had a sweet left foot. You know what I mean? He had the lot. You know, listen, if he'd have had pace, and I mean pure pace, Andy Campbell pace, he would have had the lot, because he had some attributes that I didn't have, and I had one thing that he didn't have. So you know, he put us together, we would have had some player.
He had a phenomenal first touch, mate. For a start. So yeah, guys, we're going to be a bit all over the place tonight. If you've got questions, send them in. We'll answer them. Doesn't have to be Championship. We will generally try and keep it sort of Championship and Football League, but we're just having a bit of a free-for-all this week. And while we're on the subject of free-for-all, next Tuesday, 7:30, the Super Kev Unscripted is back for a second episode. It was a lot of fun that first episode. So we'll be back to talk about all sorts, films, football and everything in between. And Cardiff are not playing at the same time as when we do the show this time as well, which is an added bonus. Geraint Cole says, is he right in believing that the Premier League has over £5 billion sitting in the bank? I feel like I should have done that with Austin Powers. £5 billion in the bank. But you're muted, mate.
All football clubs say have a lot of money. I don't think it's a Premier League's job to filter it all down. I think clubs have to take responsibility for each other. You know what I mean? Clubs have to look after clubs. because clubs are expecting their young players, for example, let's say Man City. Where are Man City's players going to go on loan to get experience? They're going to go to low league teams. So instead of probably giving them a player, give them a player and a little bit of funds to help out. So that could be putting them in a hotel. You know what I mean? So they're paying for everything for him instead of the club having to fork out for players, and there could be a link with a certain club. And for me, that's the way forward. I just think the Premier League and the EFL do get a lot of stick for the organisations and things, but I think sometimes when it's about money, the Premier League's money gets filtered down to the clubs anyway for where they finish. So it's clubs sometimes have to give something back.
Yeah, they do, but ultimately, I think the Premier League should not be like sat at the top of the of UK football, sitting by and watching as clubs go bust in the lower leagues and saying, "Oh, it's not our responsibility." So, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no,
they can't be doing
I
that.
Understand. I understand, but I think this money as well. Let's say a club in the Premier League gets in financial trouble. You know what I mean? They shouldn't do, but we've seen anything happen. You know, with Leeds United over the years and other clubs. So I'm guessing that money has got to be there for some. Let's say Chelsea owner just decides I've had enough. You know what I mean? That football club needs rescuing somehow. You know what I mean? And I'm on about that'll be £1 billion overnight fund.
Yeah.
Basically, what needs handed over to get them through the season, because it's a ginormous hole that somebody, Man City owners, Liverpool owners, Man United owners, and it's never ending. Because one day someone's going to get bored. Someone's going to get bored and plowing this money in and playing Championship Manager in a real life game.
Can you imagine if the family which owns Man City said, "Right, we've had enough"? Man City would be absolutely screwed
overnight. Yeah.
Man United, the Glazers, they're in so much debt. Those Glazers say, "Right, no, we're not putting a penny in of our own money ever again." They'd be done.
Yeah, straight away.
Chelsea, same. I think at least with Chelsea, I believe there's less debt than what there is at United. The debt is just ridiculous.
I think at Chelsea he paid the debt off. So you know what I mean. It's just a monthly outgoings, which will be horrific anyway, because you've got the hotels, you've got the grounds and everything. You know what I mean. You've got a highway living in that kind of place in London. But listen, it could happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but you just never know.
Fingers crossed, mate. Question from Rob Lay. Welcome, Rob. He says, I'm sure that we can develop some sort of protection for young children, maybe a padded cover of some sort. I mean, obviously talking about the headers and stuff, I think that with the way like materials and stuff that are around these days, top technology and stuff like that, you'd think that there must be some sort of way to provide something which doesn't look ridiculous, because if it looks ridiculous, kids won't want to wear it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the players at the top of the game, they're not going to be wearing it. So the kids are not going to want to wear it. So that's where I think you might have a little bit of a problem.
Maybe the ball's softer though. The ball's made of something different.
Yeah, for the kids, maybe like a different style ball. But then is it just the repetitive, the motion as much as the impact? I don't know. I don't know enough about it to say.
For me, it's about technique. Heading's like kicking. You know what I mean? When you get old and you can't do it.
But then is it the repetitive movement of the neck and the head that rattles the brain?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough into it and the methodology behind it, which obviously the experts know more than anything.
Yeah, so a couple of comments. Andy John says, you can't beat the medicine balls, hobnail boots, heavy jerseys, piano strings for laces, real football players, fans stood on the railway sleepers, no diving in Ponzi Lycra kits. So there we go. You can see where Andy sits on
I like some
football.
Of it. I liked some of it. I like watching the old football. I think it was amazing. I do agree with the diving and things and some of the football kits at the minute. I say that because I did a really interesting Zoom call on last Saturday night with the American Middlesbrough Supporters Association from New York, Orleans. There was a couple of guys from Vancouver in Canada. I wore one of my old Middlesbrough shirts, and it was hanging off me like I either lost about 3 stone or the shirt was just far too big for me, and it was just outrageous. I just thought, like, now everything's fitted, and it was just, I must have been either fat when I was playing or they just make them far too big, and I was just tucking them in. It was outrageous.
Slim down now, aren't you, in your old age?
Healthy.
So, a couple of more comments. Sorry, mate. Before I move on, Leslie Coates says, "Nice T-shirt to you."
Oh, thanks.
What's wrong on my T-shirt? It's a bit rude. Reece David Evans says, "Be interesting to see if Cardiff City academy players sign on loan. Playing against men will surely help with development rather than the under-23 games, which, as we've discussed before, are worthless."
So I looked at. There's a couple. Obviously, I get all the tweets from Cardiff City. I get all the tweets from Middlesbrough. And today I was inundated with some tweets from Middlesbrough's under-23s, because Middlesbrough's under-23s today played their Premier League 2 game at Wolverhampton Wanderers away from home, and the 1-4-1 away from home. I looked at the team. Some lads were 21, 22. Some are 18, 17, which I think is amazing for them, because they're playing against people who are 5-6 years older than themselves, which is great for their development. But those lads who are 20, 21, 22, for me, they're men, they're adults, you know what I mean? And they're playing against young kids. So how are they developing? Or are they at a level now where they're on their last legs because they've maybe not played any competitive football? And I fear for those kind of guys, because if they do get dropped by a club, where are they going to go? Because which professional team is going to take a look at them or give them an opportunity when they've not played competitive men's football? And that's my fear for certain kind of players. You know, for me, if you're good enough, you're old enough. If you're old enough, you're good enough, whatever. And you look at Ojo at Cardiff City, you know what I mean? You look at Middlesbrough throughout the years, have had good young players, with sent players out on loan. Stephen Walker, Middlesbrough centre-forward, going to MK Dons at the minute, played against Sunderland last week. Going out and playing men's football is just the best education for a young footballer. I'm a great advocate for it. I know we had James Coppinger on who swear by it. He's seen loads of players come and go from Doncaster on loan from Premier League clubs. He's been on loan himself as a younger player. So it's, for me, it's a great tool to have in football.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I just, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, I think the loan system does more for young players than the under-23 games. However, I will say under-23 games can be vital for other stuff, like players who are injured or have been out for a long time, injuries, or getting back to fitness before they step up into the first team or go on loan. Those games could be important for them. And also those young, if you've got like a 15 or a 16-year-old who's phenomenal and you want to test them, basically men's football, I think under-23s can be that can be a real good thing for them.
I totally agree. For me, it's the only way to do it. You know, I remember when Robbie Stockdale came on the Monday show, we spoke about what Middlesbrough used to do. Middlesbrough had we had 3 teams basically. We had the first. We had 4 teams. We had the first team, we had the reserves, we had the youth team, which is 16 to 18-year-olds, and then we had another team which was young lads against men in a men's league, competitive league, and it was absolutely horrible. It was horrible because you knew what game you were in. Some games you'd find easy because you played against 30, 35-year-old men and you could run rings on them. But when you got a clatter from one of them, you knew about it. When they got a hold of you, you knew about it and you knew in the game. But you grow up very fast, and for me, it's the only education to have. And there's nothing better than getting kicked at a 17-year-old and getting up and wanting more, because that's what happens in football.
Leslie Coates says, tip for Andy, both teams to score, PSG to win, and Mbappe to net within 90 minutes.
Let's see.
Rob Lay says, oh no, we read that one, sorry, apologies. Rob Boyle says he read somewhere that there's a new rule with the extra subs, meaning that you can have 2 extra subs in a game, but they've got to be academy players. Is that true? I haven't read that, I've got to be honest, but I'll have a gander.
I don't like the new sub rule. Where is it 9 subs now? You can have 9 subs in your squad.
That's ludicrous, isn't it?
You can bring 7 of them on. You can bring them in batches of 3.
But that can be detrimental, mate, as well, because if you're taking 9 subs and you don't use... Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
if you take 9 players as subs, right, and you can only use 7, every week you've got 2 players come in who could be playing under-23s football.
Yeah.
Now,
well, it's interesting that because I spoke to Paul Clements, and Paul's goalkeeper and coach at Huddersfield Town. I spoke to him yesterday about the same subject, that they had a behind closed doors game against Salford, which they told 3 of their players they couldn't play because they were needed for Saturday. he said they probably won't get on Saturday, so they've missed out on 90 minutes practice game, because they're going to be needed at the weekend to sit on the bench. I think that's unfair. I listened to Ian Holloway. Ian Holloway said, we can bring 5 players on at half time. You know what I mean? So if we're having a bad first half, I can change half the team. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's a threat. That's more of a threat than it is anything. It's not going to help. It's going to hinder clubs.
No.
Because they're going to upset players. Imagine bringing 5 subs off at half time when you're 2-0 down. Those 5 players are going to spit the dummies out all the time. It's just going to be it's just going to be ridiculous. It's not going to have squad harmony at all. It's going to cause problems and factions between the clubs.
I just think they should be able to use 3 subs, take 5, and two players or X amount of players within your 16, 17 player squad, match day squad. There has to be 2 academy players within that squad. I just think that's the easiest way to do it. You can't do the old 90s homegrown rule, because there's various problems with that. Yeah. So what you do is you say there's got to be 2 or 3 players from the academies in the match day squads, and that way you're ensuring that clubs are trying to do something with their academies. Because let's face it, there's some clubs around the UK who do not care one bit about academy football. They don't even try to develop academy players. What else we got? Rob Boyle, Leslie Coates says wearing a helmet on a bike is not legal, and it should be. The amount of kids falling off bikes with head injuries due to no helmet, and he said it's just a point. Yeah, he also says nice t-shirt, Simon. It's too late now, mate. Moment's gone.
Backhanded compliment.
Yeah, Andy John says head protection would have made Martin Keown look good. Garen Cole says watch Chelsea versus Leeds on YouTube yesterday. You should have seen some of the tackles. If they were counted by today's standard, that 11 players would have been sent off. There was 1 yellow card shown in the whole game. Well worth a worth a watch.
If it was Hunter, there's some of the worst tackles I've ever seen in that game. I chuckle every time, because I think how there wasn't serious injury in that game is beyond me.
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. The tackles back then, you used to have one straight through the back of you as a striker, just for, just to say hello, basically.
Yeah, and listen, managers used to set it up. Managers used to say to defenders, give him something in the first 5 minutes, because you're going to get away with it, because you always used to get a free one. You always used to get away with one. You know what I mean? Whereas now you don't, but you used to get away with 1. And then sometimes you get lucky and get away with 2. And if you got away with 2, you get away for the rest. Because by then, no one will come back for any more.
And also, if you happen to be on YouTube, just looking for something to watch, there is 327 episodes of Ace Podcast Nation for you to check out. Remember that next time. Yeah. I've got a question for you. I was going to bring it up on Monday with Leo, but I decided to save it for tonight. Very quickly, Leslie just said, give us a prediction for Boro and Norwich. So we'll do that first quickly. What you got there, mate?
To be honest, I've got to be honest, and Norwich are the team for me, which they're relentless. If you'd have asked me probably before the international break, I'd have said Norwich 100%. You can't tell what's going to happen after the international break, but I do believe Norwich have got a little bit too much from Middlesbrough, and Middlesbrough have had a great run as well, and that run's got to come to an end sometime. So Ben Gibson coming back to Middlesbrough, I think Pookie will score, and I think Norwich will have just a little bit too much from Middlesbrough. I
will go with 1-0 to Middlesbrough.
Brave man.
Middlesbrough keep a clean sheet. Pookie's going to be tired from international duty. He scored an important goal in the week as well. Cardiff, Wales were too strong.
So some of Middlesbrough's players, unfortunately, Paddy McNair's played 3 games this week for international football.
I just think it's ridiculous, mate. We'll get to that in a minute.
And extra time. It's just not fair.
Yeah, we'll get to the Nations League in a minute. But I wanted to ask you this subject. So, obviously, Scotland qualified for the Euros through the, penalty shootout, wasn't it? David Marshall was phenomenal in that game. Penalty saves, great in the game as well. Dave Marshall, in my opinion, the best Cardiff City goalkeeper, certainly in the current era, you could argue, of all time. Some people would. Not sure if I'd go that far, but he's certainly up there. He's certainly the best Cardiff keeper of the current era, and one of the best Championship goalkeepers in recent years. So, my question is, why hasn't it really worked out when he's moved up to Premier League level?
I think when he went to the Premier League, he ended up getting relegated, didn't he, in the team? So maybe it's that.
Been relegated a couple of times. I
Yeah,
think.
so you know what I mean. He's never really been given an opportunity to play in an established Premier League team, which obviously has an impact because he's probably had opportunity to go back to the Premier League, but not be number one. You know what I mean? David Marshall needs to play football matches, and if David Marshall doesn't play football games, he's too good to be a number two. So is he best off playing at a club like he's at and playing week in week out with Derby County? In my opinion, yes, he is. You know what I mean? Because he needs to play. You know what I mean? And if he's got aspirations to play for his country, now in the Euros, he's only ever going to do that if he's playing week in, week out, because there's other players who will be getting in that shop window if they're playing games regular.
Yeah, the age he's at now, he's got to play week in, week out if he wants to keep playing for Scotland, because he's coming to the latter part of his career. There's young keepers coming up. If he's on the bench, they're going to play the younger keeper who's playing week in, week out. But
Do you know what, Si?
it's an interesting one, isn't it, though?
Yeah,
because he is so good.
Well, I can't fault him. I think he's got so much desire. He could probably earn more money sitting on the bench in the Premier League than he is playing for Derby County, but he's playing week in, week out. So, for me, can't fault the lad. Dedication, commitment, desire. Would I want him to have an opportunity in the Premier League? I think he deserves one. But is that? But then I look at the teams we could probably go and play for. Burnley, Tom Pope. Tom Pope. Is it Tom Pope?
Nick Pope.
Nick Pope. International goalkeeper, difficult one. Newcastle United potentially. You know, there's probably one where he could probably walk into straight away. There's some sides where he'd be number two to begin with, and has he got long enough, and has he got the time to sit on the bench and fight for his place? Probably not.
Yeah. So he started his career at Celtic, played 35 times for them, and then he went on loan to Norwich, and then he played nearly 100 times for Norwich before making a move to Cardiff. He played 264 times for City. Then he had his kind of big move, if you like, to Hull. I think that was mainly down to Cardiff's financial situation. Then he played at Wigan before going to Derby County. In my opinion, he should have stayed at Cardiff one more season, and I think he would have got a bigger move. But I can understand the various reasons why he did end up going when he did. Obviously, I think did he go when Cardiff got relegated? No, he went the season before, didn't he? Ultimately, great goalkeeper, made his Scottish debut in 2004, but has only won 40-odd caps since. I think Scotland, actually, goalkeepers is one of their strongest positions when you think of it. They had...
That's some good goalkeepers. Alan McGregor.
Yeah. David Marshall, Alan McGregor.
Marshall,
They got the other guy who played a million games for Celtic. What was his name?
Craig Gordon.
What's his name? That's going to bug me. Yeah, it might be Craig Gordon, I'm thinking of. Did he go to Sunderland?
Yeah,
he
Craig
did,
Gordon,
didn't he?
Yeah.
It was the one who used to play for Everton as well. They used to have a Scottish keeper for a few years before Pickford.
I don't know. Did they?
Not sure. I'll have to look into that. Rob Lay as well says, greetings, by the way, from Australia. You are international.
Love
there
it.
we go.
Love
G'day,
it.
mate.
Yeah,
he's
I
not
like it.
Australian, I don't think, though. I'm
Like
pretty
it.
sure he's a Cardiff boy, but
Rob,
he's living in Australia.
Rob, whereabouts, Rob? What time is it? 'Cause it must be early there, 'cause it's obviously
yeah.
Saturday morning, so you're up early.
Good effort. Well, that's what I like to see. Bit of dedication
bit of
from the
commitment
viewer.
for the show,
Yeah, love it. So I'm just going to quickly go back through some comments because I missed a few when I was talking about Andy. David Marshall. Leslie said, best thing Downing did was go to Sunderland on loan.
Yeah, totally.
Kay Child says, Roy Keane's tackle on Haaland still makes me look away. Ouch. Yeah, that's a brutal one. And yeah, we've talked about that before. Like, it's brutal it's like the reasoning behind it and the whole story around it makes it even more brutal.
There's history there, and Roy's quite a personal man, and there's always
He took it personally, mate, didn't he?
Yeah, there's method in his madness with Roy, and love him or hate him, that's just the way he is.
Yeah, and I think ultimately as well, mate, is he's very proud of the fact that he's kind of like a proper footballer. He didn't dive, he was hard, but he also, when people went in hard on him, he didn't roll around on the floor like he'd been shot, etc. So when Alfie Haaland told him he was diving when he had ripped his cruciate ligaments or whatever in his knee, he took it personally, much more personally than perhaps other people would have. And that's where you go. Not that I'm excusing it, by the way, because it was
No.
just
A good effort, by the
Brutal,
way, by Rob. 3:45 a.m. in the morning.
Wow,
That's
that
a good
is
effort.
phenomenal. Well
Good
done,
effort.
Rob. You get
effort.
the viewer
Well,
of the week. Jesus. He also says, Rob, early on, he said, what odds would you give him on Cardiff letting in another early goal within the first 10 minutes? He's concerned teams know how slack our defence is early on in the game. It's got to be a concern. Do you know what? If I was playing
100%.
Cardiff City, I would play bloody 2-6-2 or something in the first 10 minutes and
Do you know
try
what,
and nick
Si,
a
though?
couple
Like,
of goals.
listen, I've got no issue if Cardiff City let a goal in if they've gone for the jugular and they've gone attacking the game. But
Yeah.
they don't do that. So for me,
They
it's a
just
concern.
defend badly, don't they,
Yeah,
while
it's a
playing
concern
defensive.
why they do. You know what I mean? They're playing Millwall tomorrow. Millwall haven't scored a goal in the last 3 games. So
But they got some players who could do damage, mate. Can you imagine
listen.
the
Jed
way
Wallace.
Cardiff defend in those first 10 minutes versus Jed Wallace?
Yeah, Jed Wallace.
On fire, like.
Yeah, difficult one.
Could be 3-0 down in 10 minutes, mate. But if I was manager of another team, I would 100% target Cardiff City. I want to quickly go on to the Nations League. Interesting week. But ultimately, it didn't matter. This last week, like, I know the playoffs and everything, that was great. That was fine. No problem with those games where you had the playoffs, because they were for a reason, to qualify for the Euros. Then that's when the league football should have come back. They should have had a few days off, and then you go back to the league football, the domestic schedules. Why do we need to? Oh, mate, and also why? Hang on, sorry, mate. I got to get this off my chest because it bugs me. Why are we completing the Nation League kind of schedule of games to see who gets promoted and goes up after we're playing the playoff to see who qualified for the Euros?
Yeah, listen, I don't think anyone will be shocked and surprised what I'm going to start ranting on about now, Sir. But I'm glad you said this, because my concern with how I was going to go about it was obviously we have a lot of passionate Welsh people on the show,
We'll get there
viewers, who have obviously been promoted. So it could be a big thing because you're playing against bigger teams. You know what I mean? People say, social media disappointed that England didn't beat Belgium because they had a chance to go to the finals of the nation. Oh, listen, I didn't lose any sleep that they got beat by Belgium. By the way, you know what I mean?
Belgium, best team in the world, by the way.
I didn't even care that they beat Iceland, and that was my issue, Si. You know what I mean? That England couldn't get promoted. Didn't matter, but then they play against Iceland and they still play Harry Kane, for example. Why? Why are you risking the health of a person and a player when he's got some massive games which he's going to play in? By the way, why did you play him for 75 minutes? Jack Grealish, you know what I mean? He got man of the match for me against Belgium. I thought he was excellent. So why do you need to watch him again against Iceland?
Yeah,
Give somebody else a game. Give somebody else a chance. You don't need to keep playing the same people.
If I'm Villa, I'd have been furious with that, mate.
Call a young player up from the under-21s and give him an opportunity. Give 5 of them an opportunity to play at Wembley and send 5 of the lads back home so they can have a rest before Saturday's games. I don't understand it.
My concern with this Nations League thing a bit is that they're trying to make it competitive, blah, blah, blah. I accept that because, and I am glad in one way because I hate pointless friendlies. They just frustrate me. They're just effort. I just hate them. So I appreciate the thought behind trying to create something, but ultimately, by making it competitive, you're making these players play more games, and whereas if it was a friendly, they'd have played 45 minutes, come off, and they'd have changed the whole team, which, yeah, great, is boring to watch, etc. But these guys have got to go and play 40, 50 games this season. We're like 10 games in, we're not even 10 games into the season, and they've just played 3 games in a week for international, which didn't matter. They did not matter. And on Wales, I will say, when Wales have got a full strength squad and team to pick from, they'll give anyone a game on their day. The problem we've got is our backup players from that first 11, a lot of them are very, very young. So you can get one really very good game from them, then the next one they look a bit sort of rabbit in the headlights. Not rabbit in the headlights, that's too harsh, but like they're not as consistent because they're so young.
So I look at England's group, for example. We're in Group A. which is you don't get any. You know what I mean? You're in the top group, and we've got Iceland and we've got Denmark. I'm not going to learn anything from playing against those two nations. Belgium, you're going to get 2 competitive games home and away. You know what I mean? Use that as a catalyst to see how good you are. But I want to see England against France, Germany, Spain, Brazil, Argentina, Wales. I want to see them against home nations because those games will be more competitive than Iceland. Iceland might as well not even turned up the other day. They were absolutely diabolical.
Didn't even try and win, did they?
No, well, they had 0 points. 0 points from 6 games. So they're either out of the depth or it's a pointless exercise.
Didn't care. They didn't care. I would rather than the Nations League. I'd rather you have like a 6 nations in football, but then do them all around the world. So like group areas, continents together in like groups of 6 or 7, and do that. So every time you have an international, don't have so many international breaks as well. But when you have these international breaks, you've got England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland. You have your little 6 nations. France, you could chuck France in there as well if you wanted to. They're close. And then the winner from each of those groups then goes into like a one-off tournament with the winner getting something, which means something. I'd rather that than this pile of.
So listen, I'd love to speak to Gareth Southgate and ask him what he learnt from the Republic of Ireland game for England, because his team and not in Republic's team was poor. I'd love to see what Gareth thought about the Wales game and the Wales performance, because it didn't mean anything for both teams. It was a pointless exercise. What's he learned? You know what I mean? Because we're going to play Scotland in the Euros at Wembley. So what has he learned for a home nations game, a competitive game? Because that's what they're classed as. It's not, well, it's just a pointless exercise for me.
So we got Andy John is up in Barnsley. It'd be interesting to see where everyone's from, actually. But anyway, Rob Boyle he says about Lee Tomlin's out for another 2 months. Not a great shock. But here's a point for you then. Lee Tomlin's out for 2 months. Harry Wilson's just played 3 games in a week.
Yep.
And now he's going to play for Cardiff tomorrow. If he pulls up 10 minutes into the game with a hamstring, Cardiff have got no creativity again.
Till next year. It's Christmas done as well, so he's potentially going to miss 10 games.
So you tell me, how important was the international break? How vital was it that Harry Wilson played all those games, for all those minutes in all those games? I'll tell you one thing, Neil Harris's job depends on it. If Harry Wilson was out for 3 months, Neil Harris won't be manager when he comes back. I would guarantee that.
Is it an old injury? Is it a new injury? Has he been rushed back to try and take the pressure off people? Because we've had an international break, so if he has been rushed back, why are they rushing him back? I don't get it.
Well, he must have. I think he's clearly had some in all season, haven't he? Because he's been sort of in and out, and he's not really been starting. So now he's having surgery. He's out for at least 2 months because he's having groin surgery. So. Neil, oh my God, that what I've just seen has infuriated me. Neil Harris said, the situation has become such that going under the knife became the only option for the player because he was hampered by injury. Neil Harris said, we tried to manage him. It was a bit of a gamble. We've tried to get him through it, but it's just not happened. We've taken advice and he's going the surgery route. He is Cardiff City's only creative player. Why haven't they had him have surgery as soon as they've played that playoff game against Fulham? Why isn't he having surgery the next day?
Especially with a surgery, if it's a groin injury, it's probably
he'd be back now.
It's probably a hernia. If it's keyhole, it's probably 4 weeks. So listen, I've had the operation. I've had the operation on both groins, and it's if it is the same injury, and it's not a nice one, but it's not a long one. It's not a difficult one.
But plus, mate,
recovery wise, it'd be all right.
If he's out for 2 months now, they've been trying to manage it all this time. If he's had that the day after that Fulham game, he'd be back now. 2, it probably wouldn't be as bad because you'd imagine if it is like a hernia type injury, he's definitely made it worse where he's been trying to manage it. Like what are they playing at? Because they're so dependent on him. Like
I'm getting some stick in the group here, by the way. I'm getting some stick in there.
Let's have a look now.
Yeah.
Andy John makes a fantastic point. He says, nice moustache, Simon. I'm not going to read the rest because doesn't matter. Just that's the only bit which is important.
Getting some stick.
We've got Leslie says, how come the days move? How come you've moved rooms? Usually sat in a different room.
Well, currently, I'm having a bit. Obviously, Si knows I'm having a bit of a nightmare this last few days because I'm in isolation, so I can't go anywhere. I can't do a lot, and because of what's going on in the world, I've got a little visitor on a Friday, and which I don't normally have. So when I started the show on Friday, I don't normally have the visitor, and you can probably have a.
She's so good. I can't believe how quiet she is. Oh, she's
have a
sleeping.
little sneak preview. So she's
Bless her.
she's been in bed since the show started, fast asleep. So it's
And Cade Child says no cost to coffee cup muck.
yeah, it's
tonight.
downstairs. It was the daughter. Well, with coffee, so I went for that. I went for my daughter instead. So.
I'm hoping that Mr. Campbell's going to buy me one of those for my Christmas present.
Yeah, yeah.
Wink
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Will wink and a nudge.
It's a good one. And if we don't get a sponsor out of it, I'll be fuming.
Yeah, and they're just going to, both of us will just be there like, Costa. Yet again, our transfer activity comes back to haunt us. No right back, no number 10 cover. It's like I'm like a broken record with it, Reece. It's just boring to some point, isn't it? Where they just they're making the same mistakes over and over again.
It's difficult, side though, isn't it? I mean, because people pay good money.
There you go.
People pay good money and wonder where this money goes, what they pay. You know what I mean? And at the start of the season, when season tickets get bought and players leave or get sold, where there's money get generated, and sometimes I do wonder why the listen, Kiefer Moore is a very good signing, but. Did they need other positions to fill? Because Glatzel could have played that position. Could they have filled those positions before they went and go and signed another centre forward for £3 million? In my opinion, yes. You know what I mean? There was positions which needed to be filled. I look at the way the season's finished for Cardiff City last year. Cardiff City finished the season unbelievably well because they had a stronger squad than they have got now. You know what I mean? Where they've got better players on the pitch now, but they haven't got the backup from behind. They haven't got the backup on the bench. They haven't got the players that they had behind pushing the other players along. And at the minute, the manager's caught between playing all those players all of the time, hell of the time. Hence why you're getting injuries and you're getting Tomlin getting injured because he's not getting the rest which he needed. So he's being pushed and played when he shouldn't have been.
Reece says I wonder who is signing the players because Neil Harris sounds quite surprised when they do sign someone. He did with Harris and with Moore. I think when Mehmet Dalman was on the show, he said that there's like this transfer committee, isn't it? Where it's him, the manager, and Kenneth Cho, I think it was it?
Yeah.
And they make the decisions. They basically vote, don't they? Because there was, I think it might have been Emiliano Sala actually, whereby Mehmet Dalman voted against signing him, and the other two voted to sign him, so they signed him. For me, that's problematic in having a committee. I feel like ultimately the manager should have the say on the personnel, and the chief executive or the chairman has the say on, no, that's too expensive. We'll try and get him within our budget, but that's it.
Listen, Si, if Cardiff City had a director of football, I couldn't understand it filtering down, because normally a director of football would bring the players in and the manager would work with those players and make them successful. Cardiff don't have that. Cardiff have a manager, and to my beliefs is the manager picks the players he wants, he gives them to the chairman or the chief exec, and they decide if it's a yes or a no. And if it's a yes, then he gets backed. If it's a yes and he doesn't perform, then it's the manager's responsibility. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult one. You know that the manager must be giving people a list of people for January, for example, already.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Shall we do some predictions for the championship, mate?
Yes, let's go.
I say that, and I haven't got the fixtures up in front of me, so give me just 2 seconds.
There's one being played now. We're in the middle of one now, but there's only about 15 minutes gone. So I don't know if it's 0-0. So
yeah, go on. We'll do a prediction quickly for that one then. Coventry or Birmingham, mate? What you got?
I'll go Birmingham then for the rest of this game.
I'm going to go with a Coventry win, that one.
It is currently 0-0.
Okay, so we got Bournemouth versus Reading. Give us your prediction and just a couple of lines about how you think it'll go.
I'm going to go Bournemouth, only because Reading finished on a really, really poor run before the international break. I'm guessing a lot of the Reading players will have been on international duty, which is not always a good thing. Yes, they might have come back with a different, fresher approach. But at the same time, they also could have been back with negative results as well. So it could be a bad week for Reading, with losing a lot of players for international duty as well. And I just think Bournemouth have got a little bit too much. Good game, though.
Yeah.
Big game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I think ultimately, I think Bournemouth will probably have a little bit too much, but Reading, if they play like they were at the start of the season, beat anyone on their day, mate, at the end of the day. So yeah, I think I'll go. No, do you know what? I'm going to go with Reading. I was really impressed with them at the start of the season. I thought they looked a little bit better the other day. International break, maybe they'll have got a bit of their mojo back. So we'll go with Reading for that one. Barnsley versus Forest, mate. How do you see that one going?
I think Forest have picked up. They've had 2 wins out of the last 2 games. Lyle Taylor scoring goals. Lewis Grabbin might be back as well, by all accounts. So let's see. I think Nottingham Forest will beat Barnsley.
I'm a bit stuck on that one. It's I'm going to go with Forest. I think even though I enjoy watching Barnsley, I'm going to go with Forest just because of their they still got that new manager feel and lift. Guys, tell us what your predictions are for these games as well in the old live chats. You could go with a score or just a team. Bristol City versus Derby County with Wayne Rooney in co-charge.
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult one for Wayne.
As predicted by us, by the way.
Yeah, well, he's caught between rock and a hard place, isn't he? Because does he play? Does he manage? You know what I mean? So if he plays, he's under pressure to perform. That player manager's role is such a difficult one. Bristol City had a couple of good wins before the international break with beating Cardiff and beating Huddersfield Town. I think home win for me.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, Bristol City for me, even with Wayne Rooney having then maybe give him a bit of a lift. I think Bristol have been very good this season. Lovely comment there by Gaz as well. Thank you, Gaz. I appreciate that massively, mate.
Costa.
So, yeah, Costa would be nice. Yeah, Andy Campbell and Sai have signed with Costa Coffee for $2.5 million. And then we got Luton Town versus Blackburn Rovers. One's been awesome, one's fallen to pieces.
I'm going to go Luton Town. I just think they have desire. They had a really good start of the season. I know Blackburn Rovers could win on any day, but I think Luton Town will win. I think they'll be well up for it.
Sorry, I just got to go to this comment. It's made me chuckle straight away. Not that one, sorry. Reese said he can't get over when Patterson signed for Cardiff. They signed him whilst he was injured. First day of training, Warnock said he couldn't defend. So who's scouting them? They basically got lucky that he was decent up front. Who's scouting the players? If they've signed someone, Warnock's seen him on the first day and been like, well, he's not a very good defender.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? That's concerning.
Yeah,
really is.
A little bit worrying. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Blackburn Rovers for that game. As impressive as Luton have been, Blackburn, I think, will just have too much. And I think actually Blackburn, they will have wanted that international break because they were all over the shop. And we've said over the last year, they've been on their day. They're as good as anyone in that league. They just need to get the right things in the right places. Boro versus Norwich. Obviously, we discussed this earlier, so have a quick...
I think Norwich will have a little bit too much for Middlesbrough. Norwich have kept 2 clean sheets the last 2 games. Middlesbrough have kept clean sheets the last 4 games. The last 5 games between Middlesbrough and Norwich, Norwich have won 1-0 for 4 of them and 2-0 the other one. So I think it's not going to be a game with loads of goals in. But I think Norwich will have too much for Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I think 1-0 Boro. Millwall and Cardiff City. This could go all over the place, you could say.
I think it could be goals galore. Be interesting if Kenneth Zaha plays. I know he's doubtful that he will play. If he does play, he'll be well up for the game. But I think there'll be goals in the game. I'm going to go for 2-2. I'm going to go for a draw.
I think... unfortunately, I never predict against Cardiff. So I'm going to go for a draw, which will tell you everything you need to know. Cade, Charles just asked a question. We'll come back to that in a minute, Cade. Preston North End, Sheffield Wednesday, mate.
So it's a difficult one. Both teams aren't doing great. They'd both be on similar points if Sheffield Wednesday didn't get the 6 points deducted. I'm going to go Sheffield Wednesday, but I don't think it'll be a classic.
No, me neither. I'm going to go with Preston with that one. Preston 2-1. I think looks good. QPR Watford London derby.
London derby. QPR are the fans' choice of watching because they score loads of goals and let loads in. I think there'll be tons of goals in this one again, but I think Watford will score the majority, and I think Watford will beat QPR quite heavily. I'll go for 3-0.
Yeah. See, thing is, right? If we could see into the future, and I told you QPR won 2-0 or 2-1, you wouldn't be surprised.
No.
Because on their day, QPR have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
But on the very next day, they've been absolutely dreadful.
They could lose 5-0. It's just, it must be frustrating for the manager and the fans.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm going to go with QPR win. I'm going to QPR draw. I'm going to go with Stoke City versus Huddersfield Town.
So like I said, I spoke to Paul Clements yesterday. We talked about Stoke City yesterday. Because the Huddersfield Town goalkeeping coach, and he said how strong they are, and watched a lot of videos on them. And I think they'll have a little bit too much for Huddersfield on the day. They can score goals, beat anybody, and I think they could be in the playoffs by Saturday night this week.
Yeah, I think Stoke will win, and I think actually Stoke might run away with the league. I think I might have said this last week. I think Stoke are going to run away with the league if a couple of things just fall into place and they stay injury free. Swansea City versus Rotherham.
Listen, it should be a home win. Obviously, they've had a couple of difficult games, Brentford and Norwich, but you just never know. I think Swansea will have too much for Rotherham.
YJB, Rotherham will win. I think definitely, mate, 100%. I think 2-1 to Rotherham. I say 100%, like, yeah, definitely, that's what's going to happen. No, I think Rotherham will win that one, 2-1. They've been on fire. They would have not wanted that international break whatsoever, would they? Unfortunately. Rob Boyle, with a brave prediction, he says that Rotherham will win 6-0. And I'm sure that's not influenced whatsoever by any club loyalty whatsoever. I just got a feeling Rotherham are going to pinch it, mate. As much as I think Swansea should win, and if you asked me to put my house on it, I'd go with Swansea. I think Rotherham likely or may pick up something. I just got a feeling. Wycombe Wanderers, who were banging form going into the international break, got a massive game against Brentford, which is it's got to be frustrating for them, haven't it? To be in such good form and then have to have 2 weeks off and then play one of the top teams last year.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. I think it was always going to be a hard one. They've picked up a few points, and then they have this international break, which probably, by the looks of it, won't do them any good because you're playing one of the best teams in the league who's scoring goals, creating chances. Ivan Toney's one of the best centre forwards in the championship at the minute, scoring goals. So, yeah, I can't see Wycombe winning. You know, the best will get the draw, but I think Brentford will win or should win.
If you just asked me this without the international break, I probably would have gone with Wycombe to pick up a little 1-0 or something, but I don't see him beating Brentford after the break. I'm going to go with Brentford there. Obviously, there's games next week in the Championship midweek, so I'm going to ask you about your beloved Boro, and rather than going through all the games because we don't want to take up too much more time. How do you think Boro will do against Derby next Wednesday?
I think it all depends, doesn't it, how Derby get on at the weekend. If they get a negative result and they still don't have a manager, you know, I know it looks like they're not going to get a manager for a long time because of this takeover. The longer it goes, I think the teams that are playing them will get positive results, and it'll be to the detriment of Derby County. And I believe Middlesbrough will beat Derby through the week because Derby they're not travelling very well. To be honest, they're not playing very well, and if you can keep Wayne Rooney quiet and maybe Waghorn at the minute, they haven't got much else left.
Yes, it'd be interesting. But then if Derby do pick up a big victory on the weekend in a tough game, by the way, you could see him. Yeah, you could see him getting a bit of momentum then, couldn't you, under Rooney?
New managers change things, but he's not a manager. You know what I mean? For me, I would just give
He's
him
one
the
of the
job.
boys, isn't he?
Yeah, I would have given him the job. Give him the job. What are you waiting for?
I think it's a bit rubbish, isn't it, to say, like, we're waiting for the takeover to come. Just give it to him to the end of the season.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
let's face it, they're probably going to give it to him anyway.
Yeah,
when the takeover's done.
The takeover might happen at the end of the season anyway. So what have we lost?
And plus, why wouldn't you just ask the takeover, the people who are involved in the takeover, when you take over, are you likely to give Wayne Rooney the job? If so, we'll give it to him to the end of the season, and then you can sort it out in the summer. I'm going to go with Derby, mate. Sorry. Apologies. And then also Cardiff play Coventry on the Wednesday. They moved it from the Tuesday to allow for Super Kev unscripted on Tuesday.
It gives Coventry an extra day to recover after their games tonight. So you know what I mean. It gives them an opportunity, which is unfair, fair, whichever way you want to look at it. But I do think Cardiff should win. You know what I mean. And to be fair, if we're talking about a tough game at the weekend tomorrow, then they'll have to pick themselves up and get a win in the midweek, because Neil Harris will be under pressure if they don't get, for me, at least 4 points this week, never mind if not 6.
Mate, on paper, Cardiff City playing Millwall and Coventry in the same week should be picking up 6 points.
I agree.
Realistically.
On
If
last
they've
year's
got-
form.
Yeah, well, on last year's form, at the start of the season, what what all three clubs' targets were, to where to finish in the league. Cardiff City should be looking to pick up 6 points from those two games. Do I think they will? No. And I tell you what, they got to keep Harry Wilson fit, wrap him in cotton wool, because they could be in all sorts of trouble if he picks up any sort of injury. Okay, to finish us off, then we'll have a few questions. So if you've got any questions on anything, just get them in quickly. Was there anything, Andy, which you wanted to discuss? There was something which you said to me before the show, and I can't remember what it was.
We were talking managers, weren't we?
Yes.
We were talking managers, and we were talking about managers leaving, obviously with Wayne Rooney and things. And obviously we have a laugh and a joke, didn't we, about John Sheridan. He's had something like 15 jobs in 11 years, which I just find out just astounding. Not outstanding, astounding. He's got the best agent in the world. He's not done well in all them 11 jobs, by the way. To still continue getting work is for me, it's a little bit of a joke, a little bit laughable, you know, that they're all for giving young coaches and fresh people an opportunity. And obviously Richie Wellens left his role at Swindon Town to go to Salford, which left an opening for John Sheridan to go into Swindon Town. And there's too many people leaving managers' jobs. We spoke about on Monday about there being a management window and an opportunity for.
Yeah, what did you think of my
have a bit of
suggestion for that?
stability. Listen, Si, it's the same as players. Clubs need stability, and the only way to have stability is stabilising at all levels. And players have to stay for 6 months, so why not managers? But for me, I probably wouldn't have a window. If you sign a contract for 12 months, then see it out. Then you won't be getting yourself into trouble, because you know I listen to what you said, and I think it's a great idea. If a club signs a manager on, let's say Wayne Rooney gets a job for 12 months, and he doesn't do very well, at the end of those 12 months, it's not costing him anything to get rid of him. But if he signs a 3-year contract and he has a bad year, he's got to be paid off for 2 years. Who can afford to do that at the minute? Nobody.
Especially, he's one of the highest
For me,
paid players.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So for me, maybe his clubs are a bit conscious about sacking managers because of the payoff. You know what I mean? At the end of the season, it might be a bit of a scramble because 10 managers are leaving and there's 10 openings, but who cares? You know what I mean? You've got a couple of week window in the summer to get it done, get your new manager in place, and you can plan your pre-season. With a minute, people are losing their jobs after 5, 6, 7, 10 games because they've had a bad start. You know what I mean? Sheffield Wednesday, Derby County. You know, how can you stabilise? And you know what I mean?
And I think
this isn't just this 10 games, by the way, because Cocky's had a poor season last season as well. So it's not just a one-off.
another aspect to it is if a manager gets off to a bad start, like 5, 6 games, can't pick up a win anywhere, but then he might settle into the job, the players start to understand what he wants from them, and it stops clubs pulling the trigger, like a trigger happy clubs, doesn't it? It stops them just diving in and sacking the manager straight off. And maybe, you know, Fergie famously had a terrible start to his United career and then turned it around. So maybe that provides that. I think that it should come in as soon as possible, because I just think it would work best for stability of football clubs. Leslie says, I thought you were visiting Middlesbrough, Simon, at some point. I am going to be coming to Middlesbrough, but not at the moment. I've got to be very, very careful because of my health with everything that's going on. So as soon as I can do so safely, I will be coming up to Middlesbrough, and we're going to film a show in person and whatnot. Got some big plans for which have unfortunately been put on hold because of everything which has happened this year. We had some massive plans for kind of in-person shows and content, and doing maybe a couple from a studio and things like that. Which we're still we had a little road trip. We were gonna go up to Scotland and get Kev, and what was it? We're gonna go and see the Crooks in Chesney and a few different places, and we're gonna just have a little film it all, little documentary. But still got big plans. They're just on hold, as it were. Reese says, why do players wear the smallest shin pads possible? When I played, I had big ones with the padded ankle protection. It didn't alter my movement or speed, but Grealish wears tiny ones and gets kicked every game.
Well, I'm similar because I've had the same pair of shin pads for about 26 years, and all mine just cover is my shin bone. I don't have any other protection. I've had a couple of bad injuries ankle-wise because of tackles and things. It's every person to their own. You know, I've seen people who wear the padding ankle ones, a little bit like cricket pads that they cover everything around you from your knee downwards. But for me, I just think they're there to serve a purpose, and it's your shin bone. You know that you can still have protection on your ankle and you can still break, for example. You know what I mean, by doing the wrong movement. So for me, less was more sometimes.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Andy says Simon will go to Boro for a Costa. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Cade Child says, I don't even know what this means. So
Oh.
maybe we're going to have to bring back the fake Geordie Bingo Lingo,
Parmo.
which I sorely missed that.
Parmo.
That's
A parmo is a chicken, a scalloped chicken with breaded cheese, bechamel sauce.
that sounds right up my alley as well.
Yeah, it's very unhealthy and very nice.
Right up my alley. Yeah, I think we should. If you think we should bring back the fake Geordie Bingo Lingo, then please let us know. And if you don't know what it is, check out some of the earlier Andy Campbell shows. It was basically Andy would translate some northern slang, or he would teach me something about the north of England. It was always good fun. It was a soon-to-be award-winning feature, I think, was the tagline. Andy John said, "Who's the next guest on Crime Watch Monday?" See, if you'd watched the start of this show, you'd have known.
Yeah, we've got a good guest on Monday. We've got York City and Sunderland legend, ex-Cardiff City player Darren Williams. Darren had a very strong career playing for his country.
Premier League
footballer with Kev Phillips era, Niall Quinn. I was lucky enough to play with him at Cardiff City. I've known him for a lifelong friend of mine. I've known him for 30 plus years and the family. So yeah, some good stories. And for those Middlesbrough fans, we'll talk about that goal, which there's a story behind it, by the way, which isn't a pleasant story, but it's a fantastic story.
Yeah, indeed. And you can check out Darren. He's also the guest on Mental Health in Sport this Sunday. So he's going to be on back-to-back nights on Ace Podcast Nation, which is going to be really, really interesting because we're going to get to talk about the mental health side on Sunday. Obviously, we've already recorded that. And then Monday, we're going to talk about the football side as well as probably a bit about the show which goes out Sunday. What else we got? Leslie says, do you think Jack Grealish wears his shorts too tight? He reminds me of Shaw, who did the same for Villa in the late 80s.
Yeah, he rolls them up from the waist, and he rolls them up a good couple of times, so you can see more of his legs. So the shorts are a little bit tighter.
Branding, mate, I reckon.
Listen, he's a very good looking boy. He's very talented at what he does, and it's his style and his socks get tucked under. He looks like a 70s or 80s player. You know what I mean? Because of the way he plays.
Do you reckon that in the summer we'll see Jack Grealish? What numbers he wear? 8. Jack Grealish,
Yeah.
8 shorts, like Speedo short, like shorts, tennis shorts. probably.
Listen, the way that he styles himself, you know what I mean. That people are going to copy, especially if he's a national player and his profile's getting as big as it is, and Aston Villa start doing well like they are. Listen, his stock will go up tenfold because he's a markable young person.
100%. Do you think he's future England captain, mate?
Not for me. I wouldn't say captain, no, because I think there's too many people who would probably pick ahead of him being a leader.
At that sort of age group, then, like early 20s, mid 20s, who's your England captain out of them? Not necessarily the next in line, but the next.
Probably Gomez for me. I think probably Gomez at Liverpool. You know what I mean, or Trent. You know what I mean. Probably one of those two. Probably have captain of England, leading from the back, leading by example.
Fair enough. Reece David Evans says we should look into setting up a fantasy football league. I used to play fantasy football league a lot. I haven't done it the last couple of seasons.
No, I haven't done it. The Premier League hasn't really interested me that much.
No, I like the Championship one, but not many places do it.
To start our own template.
Yeah, not just set up a fantasy football league, just actually set up our own literal game. Leslie says from Middlesbrough, Williams? ?
Yeah. Born and bred in Middlesbrough. I was born quite close to him. I lived near his mum for quite a long time. Still bump into the family. Speak to his brother now and again. And yes, he's a big Boro fan. And obviously, he was lucky enough to score against Middlesbrough for his club that he did really well for. So he's great stories to tell. It'll be a fascinating show on Monday.
I can say more. I was going to say, like, the mental health show, which we done with him for the Mental Health and Sports series, was phenomenal. It was such an interesting episode. It's one of my favourites so far because we touched on so many different subjects, but, like, it was just really fascinating. And Darren was really interesting. He spoke really well, spoke about his own issues, spoke about what we can do in the future to help young players. Great stuff, I gotta say. Garen says he thought Cade was referring to a Parmo Violet Sweet. I don't know what that is either.
I thought it was a Parmo Violet Sweet. No,
I don't know what they are.
The purple ones, purple sweets, like refreshers.
Okay. Oh, okay,
yeah, they're nice.
And that's about it. Leslie says, where is he from in Middlesbrough?
I don't know. Where was he from? I think he lived near the town originally. When his mum originally. But obviously they moved out the area. But yeah.
Right. Okay. Okie dokie. I think that's us for tonight. Unless, as usual, I get a couple of questions as I'm wrapping up. But just as I do a few plugs, guys. If you haven't already, subscribe to youtube.com/AcePodcastNation. At the moment, that is the most direct way to support the show and the channel. Maybe in 2021 that might change, but we'll see. But Sunday, Mental Health in Sport, episode number 6. Oh, Cameron Jerome. Sorry, Cade. So Cade asked a question about Cameron Jerome. When we were doing the predictions. So he says, if he's wrong, didn't Cameron Jerome start his career at Middlesbrough and then didn't he get a deal done to go to Cardiff? And the reason I wanted to save this, sorry mate, just quickly, is Cameron Jerome was absolutely phenomenal for Cardiff, but he's never really did it anywhere else. I think he was all right. I was going to say he was all right for Norwich, but for Cardiff, he had that one season where he was really, really good. And do you know what? Just like I said about Marshall, I felt like he left at the wrong time. I felt like one more season.
Well, to answer Cade's question, he started off at Middlesbrough. I came across Cameron at Middlesbrough. He came on trial, and he got into the youth setup. He did really well. He was a little bit raw, but he did really well. He came to Cardiff and still a little bit raw. You could tell that he hadn't been in the football system too long, and I thought he did really well. He got an opportunity, pushed me out the door. So fair play to him. Got an opportunity under Dave Jones and made a career for himself. He's done great, and obviously scored last weekend for MK Dons against Sunderland. So still doing it.
It's a great move for them. I thought that was
towards the end of his career, and good luck to him. You know, he's a very very good lad, very very likable young person. Well, young person. I keep referring to people young
34,
person,
mate.
but yeah, he's 30-year-old grown man with kids. But he's a good lad, great player, and good luck to him. And hopefully he can play as long as he can, because he's a long time out of the game.
Yeah, he never made a first team appearance for Boro, and then he moved to Cardiff. He scored 24 in 73 games, and he was very good. Like you say, he was very raw. Like his finishing was, one week it could be phenomenal, and then the next week it could be a bit wayward, because he was raw and he was young. He also slated Cardiff when he left, which I didn't like, and I think someone else just mentioned that in the chat. I felt like, in terms of the football side of it, I felt like one more season would have benefited him with Cardiff and then move. But he went to Birmingham. He scored 37 in 181 games, and then he kind of was a bit up and down for a few years. He was Stoke, Palace on loan. Then he did all right at Norwich, 38 and 130, and then again Derby didn't do great. Gutesby or whatever that is, I'm not even sure where that is. But I think MK Dons is a fantastic move for him, and I think even at 34, he could do some real damage in that league. So he went to Turkey. Sorry, I was just checking. Do you think he could do some damage, mate, even at 34 for MK Dons?
100%. He's obviously still a young lad, isn't he? So
God, only in League One, mate.
So it's like he's in a good side, and when you're playing in good side for young managers, Russell Martin's a good young manager with a bit of an opportunity to get promoted. So if you can beat Sunderland and play teams like After Park, you've got an opportunity to get promoted.
Yes, I think great signing for him, and that's us. So big massive thank you to Black Diamond Sports, of course. You could check out all their stuff at their social media pages and their LinkedIn pages, their website, and Bespoke Financial, as ever, for their support, their sponsoring the shows. You can check out their stuff at the various description links in the description and the closing credits. And of course, if you want to take advantage of that offer, or you want the contact details for Darren, get in touch with myself or Andy, or get it from the closing credits. Take advantage of that offer, because like I said, in today's current climate, insurance and cover is vital, mate, isn't it?
Oh, massive. You know what I mean? It's peace of mind. That's what it is. It's peace of mind, and don't have any regrets. That's one thing I probably would say.
Yeah, and I will say, just very quickly, is we could get a sponsor for the show. I could get a sponsor from Blue Chew, which is for erectile dysfunction, and I wouldn't have no problem them being a sponsor or anything like that. But I would rather partner up with brands who I know personally, or we've got a personal connection with, or they're really at the tip top of their field. And Bespoke Financial is award winning for their customer service, and you use them. You've used them for years, so I've got no problem telling people, go and check these guys out, because I know that it will benefit the people who watch our shows, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
Garang says, and what a way to finish, he says, you've got to get into a studio, lads. And I couldn't agree more. Yeah. We're just waiting for the right opportunity to come along.
Yep.
As soon as it does, we'll be there. And as soon as Andy's in Cardiff or I'm in Boro, we'll film at least one live episode. We might even record one in the studio while we're there as well. Leslie says, just to finish us off, he says, have you got a bet on Andy because you keep looking at your phone?
No, I don't. No, I didn't even.
He's not looking at his phone. He's looking at his daughter and thinking.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Make sure she's all right.
Don't fall asleep. Don't wake up, rather.
Yeah.
Look, guys, thanks for everyone getting involved, asking questions. We love it. Love doing these shows. That's why we brought the second show in. And even though the Friday show's not as busy as the Monday one, we love it, mate. That's why we do it. That's why we added it. Friday's always going to be a bit more different, because people have got other stuff on. It's the end of the week, and I know a lot of people watch and listen afterwards. but we enjoy interacting with the people who come in and watch on a Friday as well. So it's phenomenal, as they say. But we'll be back Monday. Is the next live show, 7:30 for the Andy Campbell Football Show with ex-Sunderland, York and Cardiff City defender Darren Williams. And we're going to have a preview, a prelude to that show by watching Mental Health in Sport, 8 p.m. Sunday on Facebook and YouTube with Darren Williams, with myself and Jacob, talking all things mental health and sport. And we got some big guests coming on that show in the coming weeks, so keep an eye on that as well. In the meantime, we'll see you the next week. Cheers guys.
Cheers guys.
My mummy and daddy have been talking about life insurance. It sounds like something to protect my brother and me, but I don't really understand. Then my auntie Louise told mummy about Bespoke Financial Teesside. She said they're a local company who helped her with her life insurance. Mummy got in touch, and because they're based locally, a man called Darren was able to come to our house. He was really friendly. Darren stayed for a cup of tea and made it all really easy to understand. He said that life insurance will protect our home and family if anything bad were to happen. Like if mummy or daddy got sick, then we'd get enough money to take care of us, and our house would be paid for so it wouldn't get taken away. After an hour, Darren said goodbye and mummy and daddy seemed a lot happier. Once it was all sorted, we could all relax and watch a film together as a family. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner.
I belong to you.
I belong to you.